This isn't anything revolutionary. I'm not inventing anything. This is just me copying other people. Lots of people on YouTube have videos about this. They've done it a little bit differently. Everybody does. But basically the system that I'm using is an aftercooler and a place to trap my water so that I can get it out of the system. Okay, so my compressor isn't completely done, but it's done enough to kind of show you guys how it works and the theory of the system anyway. I have tested it and it seems to be running well. I've got some weird spring set up on it to try to dampen some of the vibrations. I put the compressor up in my attic and it's quite heavy, and even though I have storage trusses, it's kind of shaking the ceiling. As you can see, the system has no air in it currently. I have a 1/2 inch full bore ball valve here so I can shut the reel off if I need to. It goes up and tees into 3/4 PEX. I have a ball valve there now. I am eventually going to run PEX around this side of my garage. And then we go over here and I have the same thing on the other side. So I have a ball valve there. All that I really need right now is my hose reel. So I have that hooked up, and that is where the lines come down from the attic. One of the PEX pipes coming down, the one with the black wire taped to it, is my automatic drain. So if you follow that line, we come down and it goes to my automatic drain, which is right here. As you can see, the pipe comes out of the bottom of the automatic drain and goes down into the floor, and it comes through to here, and then it will just basically absorb into the soil. This isn't going to be a problem. I know it's not going to be a problem because for 5 or 6 years already, I've been draining water from my floor heating condensate, and I haven't had any issues. There's not any gross mold or anything growing in here. So now we're going to take a walk up into the attic and I will show you guys the system there. A little later on in the video, I will run the compressor and show you guys how it sounds and how quickly it fills, how quickly it recovers. It is a 5 horsepower electric motor, 22 amps at 240 volts. The pump is a 2-stage pump. I don't have an air filter on it yet. Planning on using a Kerr air box. I saw that on somebody's YouTube video and I think it's a great idea. So coming out of the compressor, I have black pipe. And the reason why I did that is because it allows for a little bit of movement. Because the fittings are all threaded, it allows for stuff to shift around a little bit. Out of the black pipe into a union, into 3/4 inch copper pipe. And on the outside of the 3-inch copper pipe is 3/8 copper tubing. In the future, I may run a cooling fluid like antifreeze or something through this to really tackle the heat in the air system, but I actually did that as an afterthought. Comes into a flex hose, it goes into the cooler at the top here, goes through a bunch of copper tubing and comes out of the bottom. As you can see, there is a fan. The air flows through the cooler, comes out of here. I already made a video showing this without the cover on, so if you're wondering about that, you can watch that video. And so then we have the cool air coming out of the bottom of the cooler through some PEX, and it goes around here and into my 5-gallon tank, out of the top of the 5-gallon tank into the bottom of a 33-gallon tank, and then out of the top of the 33-gallon tank and down, and this is the hole in the floor that goes down to the T and then to my hose reel. So what I have here is a junction box where I can tie into the power after it goes through the switch. So from the fuse box, I have my 240 coming up to the switch, and then out of the switch, it goes into this junction box. And so basically any time that the compressor is running, the fan will have power, so the fan will be getting cooled, and it gets powered through this wire here, which goes up and around and then to the fan. And the automatic drain is also powered off of this. The wire comes out of the back of that and around and then downstairs. There's a check valve on the bottom of the 33-gallon tank so that air can come out of the 33-gallon tank to the automatic drain, but it can't be filled. Basically, I don't want water from the bottom of this tank filling this tank. What else? I've got a gauge here. I've got a pressure relief valve there. The big tank also has a pressure relief valve on the top of it. And then something that I didn't show you downstairs, what I did was I put a ball valve on the oil drain. So when I crack this ball valve, it'll drain the oil and it goes downstairs. So before I forget, I thought that I would show you guys the oil drain. This is what I have set up right now. So when I want to service this, I'll just run it for a little while till the oil gets nice and hot. And then I'll crack that valve and it will drain into the pan down below. Then I can shut that valve, refill the pump from up here, and that will be that. I built the frame for the compressor itself out of some scrap material that I had kicking around. It was 4-inch channel with some 2-inch angle iron and then some, I think 1.5-inch pipe. And I welded that together, bought some rubber mounts for the bottom of it, and then the support for the copper pipe here I welded out of some 1-inch tubing with some 3/4 as this little angle support, and it bolts on there. Okay, so I'm downstairs. I have the hatch closed so we can get a realistic idea of what it's going to sound like down here. I've got my stopwatch ready and I'm about to turn on the breaker. And the timer started. As you can see, not very loud at all. I'm talking at a normal voice, or my normal voice anyway. And the compressor is over in that corner. I think you can kind of see. Oh, that was the drain draining. That was quite quiet. So we'll just hang out here for another minute or so and see. The drain must have drained at 30 seconds, so I'll try not to talk too much so that I don't have to cut stuff out. There we go. You could hear that. Not very loud at all. So let's go upstairs now before it fills up, and we will open this. You're not going to be able to hear me, but yeah. Right away, we're gonna check the temperature on a few things. I was concerned at first that maybe the belt would slip because of this weird pulley system that I have. The pulley's 45 degrees Celsius. I can touch it, and I can touch the belt and the big pulley without burning my hand. So that means that that's not slipping, or it would be extremely hot. Other thing I was worried about was how hot this would get, and I can touch that. It is 18, that is 8 degrees. So that the ambient temperature in here is 8 degrees. So the compressor head is about 26 degrees. The line between the high and low stage is about 46 degrees. I can touch that. Where it comes out of the head, a little bit hotter here. That is 57 degrees. Yeah, I'm extremely happy with that. It fills 40 gallons in about 2 minutes and 35 seconds. I'll show you guys how long it takes to drain out and then what the recovery time is. So 1:30 it turned on. As you can see, it's not terribly noisy. I can definitely listen to a little bit of music, or let's see, what do I have here? That was the drain. Okay, so it turned off. You can actually hear the bleed off, bleeding through that hole, so I am. So it is the next day. I've already checked my air pressure. It's down to 110 PSI. I'm perfectly okay with that. Of course, I would prefer that the system was completely sealed and didn't leak at all, but I'm happy with it the way it is. Wait. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah, good boy. Good boy. Where are you going now? Okay, so before I end the video, I'm going to try to explain why you end up with moisture and air in the first place, or water in your compressed air system. If you look at your local weather forecast, it will very frequently tell you what the relative humidity is, and what that is telling you is the amount of moisture or water that is in the air. If you check closely, it will often tell you the barometric pressure as well. What an air compressor does is compresses, the name gives it away, compresses a large volume of air down into a smaller space so that it is pressurized and so that it is usable. Yes, what do you want, kitten? Do you need to go up in the attic? Do you need to go up into the attic? In my case, I'm taking 15 PSI air, the barometric pressure, the pressure of the air around me, and I'm compressing it 8 times to bring it up to 120 PSI. In the process of doing this, I'm also concentrating the amount of water in the air 8 times. And so now I have all of the moisture that was in this large amount of air now in a quite a bit smaller space. There's one more thing that I need to mention that's important, and that is that the air compressor actually increases the temperature of the air quite a bit as part of the process of compressing it. So you have hot, humid air that is flowing between the compressor pump into your tank. When it reaches the tank, it expands slightly and cools. Expanding air cools naturally, and then as it sits in the tank actually acts as a radiator and gets rid of some of that heat, and eventually the air in the tank will cool down to ambient temperature. As this happens, you end up with water condensing forming water droplets on the inside of your tank, and that's why it's recommended to drain your tank frequently. I'm having a bit of a hard time making this video for a couple of reasons. One is because my cat is out here and he's being a little bit of a pain in the butt. Anyway, so even if the water condensing in your tank isn't an issue, so you drain the water out of the tank and you're not worried about the tank rusting, you still have to deal with the increased level of moisture that is in the air. Not all of the moisture is going to come out as water droplets. So if you're using a tool like a paint gun, the increased humidity is going to cause issues in your paint. If you're using a plasma cutter, the increased humidity will cause issues with the way it cuts and also damage consumables apparently. Problem with sandblaster is that it uses such a large volume of air that the water will actually condense coming out and form water droplets as it's coming out, and it mixes with the sand, it turns into mud, clogs up the tip, and then you have to stop and clear it. Ordinarily, you have your hot, moist air condensing when it cools inside of your main tank. So what I've done to try to take care of the moisture problem is I've installed two coolers. So the first cooler is the copper pipe here, and then the second cooler is this big thing here that has a whole bunch of copper pipe inside of it and a fan blowing air through it. So the way the system works is that the air will be cool enough when it comes out of the bottom of the second cooler that when it goes into this first tank, the air will drop most of its humidity into this tank, or will have already dropped its humidity into these lines. So anytime the air compressor is running, it will periodically drain moisture out of the bottom of this tank. Now this tank is connected to the large tank, or the main tank, through a check valve. So the gray tank, the main tank, can drain this way and down into the automatic drain, but the moisture from the small tank can't go back this way and go into the main tank. So the hope is that we lose most of our moisture here, and then any moisture that does make it into here condenses and gets pushed out through the drain before it actually makes it up and goes down into my tools. So now I can get back to doing some other projects. I need to do some biking because I'm getting quite unhealthy and old. I've got a bunch of work to do to my jet ski. I was doing some powder coating and sandblasting, and then I started bathroom renovations and decided I was going to build an air compressor. So that's the end of the video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave a comment in the comments section below. Anyway, I've ranted on long enough. I will see you guys next time. I'm having quite a bit of difficulty finishing this part of the video. It's kind of a hard subject for me to explain.